at it. Well, I am super excited, Sally, because you've had quite a journey. Sally is an amazing author, speaker. She's a parent coach with our Brave Parent Institute, and I got the pleasure of meeting Sally. Oh, I don't know, maybe it was 2 years ago
Yeah, I
now.
think so.
It literally feels like yesterday.
Oh,
And I remember meeting Sally in this Starbucks in Edmonton. And my friend had said, you have to meet this woman. You're going to love her. And after I left that coffee shop, I think I sat in my car and I actually think I said, man, I like that woman. I said that to myself because, Sally is just infectious, and her passion for people, like to really see people be well taken care of, to feel loved, to feel belonging. Like you just can't be in Sally's presence and not feel these things. And so I said to Sally, you released a book during COVID. I mean, that's brave. That is a brave move. And so I thought tonight would be really cool to hear Sally's story behind her book, In Search of Serenity. And honestly, like right now, what a time for us to just hear something heartwarming, moving, something to inspire us. The world is heavy. A lot of people are feeling down, and I just think tonight is timely. And so, Sally, welcome. Can't wait to hear your story. You can take it away.
well, thanks, Connie. Thanks for doing this. This is going to be fun. I hope. I feel like I'm really glaring right here. Like I had the shiny forehead. Oh well, I'll just let it go. Um, so I'm going to start off by saying something that, some people don't like to hear. I was the kid that everyone hated. I really was. I was the kid that I was a mess. I was a freaking hot mess. Let's be honest. I was the kid flipping out. I was losing my temper. I couldn't handle things. And I am older than Methuselah. I'm 56 years old. So this was 50 years ago. I had amazing parents. I need to be clear. My adoptive parents were amazing. But who the hell knew about any of the stuff that we know about now? FASD, sensory processing, me. I had all those things, and I just was this kid that couldn't regulate myself, and I was always losing my junk. And I know I was the kid that no one liked. And you start off life like that, and you start off life also with the knowledge that the one person, your mom, walked away from you. The one person who should love you more than anything walked away from you. And I had really loving adoptive parents. They were amazing. This is not a Joan Crawford tell-all book at all. My adoptive parents were amazing. But they didn't know what they were doing. They had no idea what they'd taken on. And I had all these problems that were never diagnosed. They didn't even know they existed then, right? I remember years ago we did a story with the Fifth Estate because my son Brady had seizures as a baby. And the Fifth Estate did a story on me, and they said that they spoke to a social worker from that time, and she said that, well, we started to know around in the late 60s that there was a problem with alcohol and pregnancy, but we didn't want to mention it because we thought we'd make the kids unadoptable. Awesome. So that's what she said. She on the Fifth Estate, God love her. So I struggled. I struggled so hard in life. It was so hard as a kid. I knew that no one liked me. I knew that I'd flip out. I knew that I was, and the shame, you bring on a massive shame story because you instantly have regrets. But Connie, we know well enough as being coaches with brave parents is when kids or people flip their lid, your thinking brain is 3 seconds slower than your emotional brain. So you've lost your junk already, and then afterwards you sort of go, oh. And so I went through my whole life with this shame, and then when I was 10, my dad's sister married a man who turned out to be an abuser. And that I know of, I'm sure there were others, but I know I was the one. And so, but everybody liked him. He worked for my dad. My aunt worked for my dad. Everybody liked him. Everybody thought he was great. And he was a nasty alcoholic. And he made from 10 to 13, he made my life a living nightmare. And then the summer of my 13th year, grade 8 year, I grew 3 inches in one summer. And I was big enough to stand up to him because he wasn't a big man. And I just So then he would just sort of verbally abuse me and would corner me off in rooms and stuff. So you start out life feeling like you don't fit in. I always said I felt so broken. I felt so unfixable, and I felt there was nothing that they could do to help me. I always said I feel like I belong on the island of the misfit toys, but I could never find the island. Even then, I didn't belong on the island. And my whole life, I was always looking for that sacred cow. Do you know what I mean by that? The sacred cow where, well, when this happens, my life will be perfect. Well, when this happens, my life will be perfect. When I meet the perfect man, my life will be perfect. I met the perfect man. I'm still married to him 24 years later. God love him. He's a saint. When I have kids, of course, we lost our first baby, and I was convinced, because you have this thing in your head that good things don't happen to you. I was always terrified my husband would leave me. And then we lost our first baby, and then finally Brady came along, and I thought, okay, it's going to be good now, but it still wasn't. It still wasn't. And then I had 2 boys, and at that point I realized I needed to outsource, because I desperately wanted a mother-daughter relationship, because when I was 18, my adopted mother died of cancer, and that was the second world-rocking experience of my life. And her and I were close, and it was rough. And my dad went crazy, became a drunk, and it was very tumultuous. It was very, very tumultuous. And I just felt like I never fit anywhere. I always said, I feel like I sit on the outside and I look in, but I'm never part of anything. Like you're looking through a window and you're not part of anything. And that was so incredibly brutal. And so I had my husband, I had my children, but there was still something missing. And it wasn't that they were the problem. And I remember in my depression that I had suffered with depression so much and so much mental illness. And I remember saying to Marie, I need you to know this is not about you. There is nothing that you and I being apart would fix this. This is my shit, but I just don't know what it is. I just don't know what that is. And it was so hard. And then we had 2 boys, and I desperately wanted that. I didn't want to be a motherless daughter. I wanted to have a daughter, because I was a motherless daughter twice. And so I wanted to have a daughter, and I got 2 boys. So I had to outsource, and I fired him. Men determine the sex of the baby, just saying, their fault. And so what I did was we started to adopt. He said to me, are you sure? He was trying to sell Sally, we've got 2 healthy boys, everything's good. And I said, I'm just scared I'm going to wake up one morning and be 50 and not have my daughter and hate your guts. He went, okay, call the adoption agency. I truly said that to him. He is a saint. Have I mentioned that? He's a saint. So we started the adoption process, which was a gong show. And I said, I am not adopting from social services. It's not happening. It's going to be private adoption. That's what we're going to do. All that we tried to adopt from China, from Haiti, it all fell through. Nothing worked. And then one day we received a phone call. And it was funny. We'd celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary, and we'd been away for the weekend, and friends had my boys. And we talked about it. And I said, I just want a daughter. I just want a little girl. And he said, honey, if I could give you that, I would, but I don't think it's going to happen for us. And we came home from that weekend on a Monday, and Wednesday morning I was driving in my car, and I got a phone call from a friend, and she said, hey, so I have this friend of a friend of a friend of a, this big chain of this little girl that's got, that they want to find a home for. And I've had those phone calls before, Connie, so I didn't hold too much hope in that. And this is a hard story. This part of the story is hard for me to tell, because so I thought, okay, I'll phone the woman, whatever, it won't work out, pessimist. And I phoned, and I talked to her, and she says, come here. We went and met her that night. And oh my God, she's our daughter. I knew instantly. It's like someone had taken her out of my body and put her on my chest. I knew. And I had met 2 other little girls, and I thought, they're cute, they're sweet, they weren't my daughter. And we knew that night. And even when we left the house that night, I thought I was going to die. And we stood on the front step of that house, and Murray said to me, oh my God, Sally, she's ours. And I started to bawl because we knew. And what I didn't know was that we were about to embark on one of the hardest things ever in my life. And keep in mind, Connie, I watched my mom die of cancer, and I walked the beach looking for my father's dead body and found it. And yet that wasn't as hard as trying to adopt through social services. It was brutal. It brought me to my knees. And so I started writing In Search of Serenity more as for catharsis. And it's not her story as much as it's my story. it's how our stories intertwine, because I didn't know how messed up I was from being adopted until I met her. I saw her trauma. I saw what they put her through. I saw how she would cling to me. She'd have to do visits every Tuesday morning, worst day of the week. Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., a driver would show up at your door and they'd take my baby and she's screaming, "Mommy!" And you know when babies are crying and they're growling, like they've moved past crying to growling, and she's just screaming and she's and she's arching her back and stopping from getting in the car seat, and I can't do a damn thing about it, or it's over. I mean, and I remember I would always run back in the house and I'd crouch on the floor and sob, just sob. And then we'd wait, and then usually what would happen was she would get there and the driver would call me 15 minutes after it was supposed to start. Mom never showed. But keep putting her through that trauma every Tuesday. That makes sense. Don't call ahead and say, okay, Mom's here, come now. Even then, it's a lot, but that was brutal for no reason. That happened out of 78 visits, she showed for 25, and she was usually leaving. Yeah, she was usually leaving after about half an hour because she needed another fix. And I don't have any animosity towards her. As a matter of fact, I don't at all, to her birth mother. It's, I talk about that in my book. How can I hate the woman that made my dreams come true? And she did. She was just, but for the grace of God go I. If it wasn't for my adoptive parents, I would have followed her path. So you spend your whole life searching. I just was searching and searching and searching. I found my birth mother just before we got married. I didn't fit there. And that was the crazy part, right? Was when you can't figure out where you fit. And you think that that's going to be amazing. That's going to be it, man. Like the holy grail is I'm going to find my birth mother. It's going to be this freaking Hallmark moment where you're running to the field and your hair's blowing and you're going to hug and it's going to be amazing. And I met her and I'm like, oh, shit. Like, she was a broken woman. I mean, and I have contact with her family, not with her, but with her family. Her family is lovely, and they have been nothing but kind and welcoming to me. But I'm not their family, and I know it. I'm not one of them. So you feel like where the hell do I fit? Where's the island? I can't find the island. And as we carried on in our adoption story with Serenity, I started to realize just how messed up I was. And I was so focused on getting the adoption finalized, it took 4 years, that I couldn't even think about myself. And when the adoption was finally finalized, I got sick. I got really, really sick. And I developed an autoimmune disorder that happens if you go through a long-term stressful event. Well, that's been about, 45 years, but the last one was a doozy. And so it was at that point that I knew that I gotta fix this. I don't know how, I don't know what to do, but I gotta fix this because I'm still a mess. I've got everything that I thought I wanted, but I still don't feel like I fit anywhere. That was the crazy part, right? Was that you just don't ever feel like you fit anywhere. And I remember one time, 2 years ago, I found this Adoptee Connect. I got on Instagram and I found all these groups, and there's all these Adoptee Connect groups. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be my people. Holy shit, this is going to be awesome. Sorry, you should have warned these guys. I have a potty mouth. But what happened, I went to this group thinking this is going to be amazing. My son drove me. I'm in the heart of my illness, so I'm not even driving. My anxiety is so bad. So my son drove me, and I go in, I get my coffee, and I'm so excited. I sit down with these people, and I'm like, and it seems good. And then I start to listen to the rhetoric, and the rhetoric is adoption is the worst thing that ever happened to them. It's the worst thing we could ever do. It needs to be banned. We should never have been adopted. We'd have been better off aborted. True story. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God. And they refer to adoptive parents as APs or adopters, like you'd refer to your rapist or your abuser. And I'm like, oh crap, here I am. And they asked me how many kids I had. And then they wanted to see a picture. She don't look like me. My daughter is Indigenous, for those of you who don't know. I don't look that much. So as soon as I realized that I adopted, I instantly became a pariah. And it was a very awkward moment. It was an ugly moment. And there was the woman who was running it was extremely vile and unkind to me. And I said, I'm gonna go because I don't belong here, but I'm gonna say one thing. Adoption is good. Adoption can be beautiful. And guess what? Here's the thing. Adoption can be beautiful, but you know what? And it's all, whether you like it or not, it's always going to happen. And kids need to be adopted. Some kids need to be adopted. So think about that. And I'm out of here. And I cried all the way home. My son picked me up out front and I cried all the way home. And I phoned my husband because he was in Fort Mac at the time. And I said, it's official. I don't freaking belong anywhere. I never forget that feeling. And as I started, I knew I needed to find a therapist. And I'd seen many. I'd seen probably 25, and they all sucked, in my opinion. And I met this woman, and it was just by chance. And, God kind of throws stuff in your path at the right moment, because I think at that point I was ready to face it. And I met this therapist, and she got me. And she understood it. And I felt heard for the first time in my life, really heard and really, really understood. And it hit me that what is home? We talk about this, a home for Christmas, right? What is home? Well, because I was always looking for home. What home is not a building, it's not a house, it's not people, it's right here. That's what home is. And when I had that realization that I had to make home for me, I can quit looking and I can just lean in and love. But before that, I couldn't do it. Does that make sense?
Oh, thanks, Sally. I'm like,
You've heard this, not all of this, but you heard the story.
oh, but you start talking about this whole idea of home and belonging. And I just hear people's hearts, even right here in the Zoom and
Yeah.
who's going to watch this after. I mean, isn't this just the cry of our heart, is to belong? Yeah. And so many people feel like that. And I find it interesting that we romanticize adoption, like I have a vision of, your beautiful adopted baby and it's just so glorious. And I think that you've brought to reality that this is not necessarily as dreamy as it looks.
Well, that's exactly it, Connie. It's not as dreamy. It's not this gotcha day and holding up the sign out of foster care or my adoption's finalized. That's all well and good. But that's not where it ends. And so something else that adoptees feel is this sense that they have to be grateful. So, and I remember as a kid, people saying, oh, she's so lucky. And people say that I can't go to a friggin' superstore to get groceries without someone going, oh, especially when she was little. They'd say, oh, she's so cute. I would get two questions. Is there anything wrong with her? Yeah, well, because she's Indigenous, right? I'd say, no, there's nothing wrong with her, but there's clearly something with you. Your mother never taught you any manners. Just trying to get tomatoes, Karen, off you go. And then the other question I got, people would say to my husband, oh, you're so good. You're so good. And I remember people saying that to my parents, and I remember thinking, wow, they're getting their ticket into heaven by taking on this nasty waif that is me. That's how they're getting their ticket into heaven. And I would say to people, oh no, we're not good. And she's not lucky. We're the lucky ones. We get the privilege and the honor to love this child.
Yeah.
And it's visceral. I mean, it ain't about looks and it ain't about blood. And, I said once that, belonging is not blood. Belonging is spirit. It's something that belongs in your heart when you truly belong. One time Serenity has had a very hard time being away from me. She has a very, very hard time being, I mean, since we've got her, she's never spent a night away from us. She just recently, because of Gus, the therapy dog, aka cat, she's slept in our room. And I'd say to her, honey, like, that mommy, whenever I would go somewhere and I'd say I was going to go somewhere and I'd leave her with one of the boys, and she loves my boys, right? They're her brothers, they're her boys. She refers to them as her boys. And she says, I said, honey, you know, mommy will always come back, right? You know what she said to me? And I thought I was going to, I can barely say this thing to she go, but mommy, you're my person. Where does she hear this shit? Like, what the heck? I'll never forget that. And she was about 4. Mommy, you're my person. And I went, you're right, baby girl. I am your person, and I'm always going to be your person, no matter what. But I need you to be okay if I go. If I go away, I'm going to come back. You know, and she went through this terrible time of being scared that I would die. And I remember that when I was in the summer, in the year when I was in grade 6, because so grade 6 back in the day was the end of elementary school and you went into junior high. I cried myself every night. I would sob and I was so scared. And I my excuse, what I say to my mom is, I don't want to grow up. I don't want to grow up. It's like did I know inherently or deep down in my heart that there was some really sucky things coming? You know, like, I don't know, right? But it's funny how, and so home, I mean, right now, home for Christmas has so many meanings. A home for Christmas, you know? We got this cat. It was a rescue cat. He was nearly dead. Brady, my son's landlord, found him. And we were going to get a dog. I hate dogs. My sons did an intervention. They go, what the hell are you doing? You hate dogs. I mean, no offense to anybody who's a dog lover. It's just not my jam. I just don't want one, right? And I said, well, you know, and so my son literally did an intervention and go, why don't you take this? And then Brady says, why don't you take this Gus, take Bree as Gus, because they need to get rid of him because their cat doesn't like him. I'm like, so we took Gus, and his story is he was abandoned as a kitten with a litter, like the whole litter was abandoned, and it was found at a job site, starving, hungry, nearly dead, so skinny. And she rehabbed him. He was pretty healthy and when we got him. And when we introduced him to Randy and I told her his story, she said to me, Mommy, he's just like me. He had nobody, and then he got you. This child is so wise beyond her years. She wrecks me some days. Like, I'm not kidding. And so I think so much about what this home for the holidays means. Like, what home for Christmas, what does a home mean? You know, it's not a house. It's not, families are great. And listen, I'm so grateful for mine, but it's here. It's right here. It's in our hearts. It's are we okay in our own skin? Can we and for the first time in my life, and it was really writing In Search of Serenity that helped me to see, it was really that it had to come from me. That there was nothing out there that was going to make it okay. There's nothing out there that was going to make me feel like I belong. No person, no house, no nothing, no cat was going to make me feel, you know? And that's, to me, that's what home is. Home is here. You know, I said it, you know, I am the island. Turns out I've been on the island my whole life and I just didn't know it. And, you know, I always talk about, I probably would have gotten voted off if there really was an island anyway. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, I love that though, Sally, because those who belong can create belonging.
That's right.
And that's what and what a journey. Like, I want to pause for a moment with just the idea that here you were adopted, you were fought, like you were, and you felt out of place. And then I loved what you said, that we all think as soon as I get married, or as soon as I have kids, or as soon as I get that job, like you've
Right.
just nailed it right there. Like, it's not about when those things happen, then I will feel like I
Right.
belong. You nailed it. Like, we don't. You're right. It happens right here. And even through all of your pain, all of your own trauma, meeting your own mother, imagine, I can't even imagine meeting your own mother and still feeling like,
Yeah.
this wasn't it. This wasn't the belonging I was looking for. I just think that's encouraging for people, because I think when people go through trauma, or
Mm-hmm.
they go through situations where they haven't felt like they belonged, maybe their whole lives, they think, well, that's for someone else. But if someone like you, Sally, if someone with your story can say right now, this is, I belong, and this is home is right here, then I think that it's available for everyone.
Well, I think it is, because the thing that I learned is, until I could love my, it's so lame. I can't even believe I'm saying this, like barf. Okay, my therapist would laugh right now if she's watching this. And yes, I have a therapist because I'm that kind of crazy. Um, is when you can, when home can be right here, when you can love yourself. If you don't love yourself, and if you're not at home in your own skin, if you aren't okay in your own skin, it doesn't matter who loves you. I have the most, Connie, you've met Murray. I have the most amazing husband. He is amazing. I have amazing kids, and my kids would pour into us, but yet until you feel it yourself, until you actually think you're lovable, there's a concept. Until you actually think that you're worthy of that love and lovable, it doesn't matter. It just bounces off you. It's just gone. It's just gone. You can't lean in until you can love yourself. You don't know how to truly love until you can love yourself, and that is something that everybody struggles with. Like, but we adoptees take it next level. We're a special brand of messed up.
And yet look at you. I just love your story for this. And I love how, there's a beautiful mix here that you bring, this idea of this individual journey to loving ourselves, being okay with ourselves. I am lovable,
Mhm.
to also experiencing that in family, in a spouse,
Yeah.
in being a mother, that it does take relationships too to become,
Yeah.
like, I love the Velveteen Rabbit, love that story, when the skin horse, when the little Velveteen Rabbit asks, what is real? He's like, well, real happens when you've been loved, where your eyes coming out and your skin, your fur is rubbed off. And so sometimes it takes going through the experiences with people to find the island, to find that you've been on the island the whole time.
And I just missed it. And that's the thing. And my goal was, I don't want Serenity to feel this way. And yet it's interesting. She's 10 now, and I see pieces of me in her. You've got to deal with the trauma. You've got to deal with the trauma. I mean, when my you can't wrap this shit up in a pretty little bow, okay? You can't put lipstick on a pig. I'm not calling myself a pig by any sort of imagination, please know that, people. But you can't just wrap it up like, adoption is so beautiful and it's just so great. It's just, no, it's not. It's beautiful and it's lousy all in the same, and it's gut wrenching and it's hard. And how do when Serenity, actually, she's epilepsy free, but for the last 5 years, she's been epileptic. And the day that she got diagnosed and we came home from the hospital, and we were exhausted, and she just wanted me. And she typically, when she's stressed, she wants me. And so she goes, Mommy, can we have a bath together? We have this big tub. So we got in the tub, and it was the first day. She was 6 this time. She noticed our legs were against each other, and she could see our skin color difference. And she said to me, and she looked at our legs, and she looked up at me, and this look of shock was on her face. It was the first time she discovered that she was a different color. And she said, Mommy, my skin's so much browner than yours. Of course, I glow in the dark, so I'm that white. And I went, okay. And in my head, I went, Sally, do not mess this up. This is a pivotal moment. And I went, I know, right? Isn't it cool? Don't we go together good? Look at how good we are. She was 6. She'd been up all night having EEGs and CAT scans done. She didn't need a big friggin' story about, well, you're Indigenous, dear, and she didn't need that story. She just needed to know that she's still fit with me. That's all that matters.
All she needed to know was that she fit with you, that you're her person. You made that so doable, so easy, so natural. And you do that really well, by the way. I just want everyone to know that Sally is a genius at making the most uncomfortable conversations just natural. Yeah.
I said to Murray very early on when we got Serenity, I said, we have to talk about adoption, skin color, biracial families, like staying past the salt. Because as soon as, I tell a story in my book, Connie, about, I was 13 years old and I wanted to know, my name is Sally Jean with a hyphen, seriously. And I always hated that. And so my mom's name is Jean. And so that was my name, Sally Jean, the hyphen. And I wanted to know what my name was before I was adopted. And I remember asking my mom, and she was at the kitchen sink and she was washing dishes. And I was sitting at the kitchen table and it was, sort of dusk. So I could see her reflection in the window. And I said, Mom, what was my name before I was adopted? And I saw her go and freeze, like in this look of shock and terror went across her face. But she knew she had to tell me. So she goes, and my name was Cheryl Lynn. Okay, I had a Cheryl who bullied me in school. Freaking hated that name. And so I went, I hate that name. That is and I was so relieved when I was happy with. And I looked in the window again, and I saw her reflection and the look of relief on her face. And I thought, okay, this subject is off limits. I get it. You don't want to talk about it. She told me that, she always told me, I mean, I always knew I was adopted, but she told me that she told me that it takes far more love to love a child that you didn't get, or to give a child up when you know you can't give them a good home, than it does to keep them. That was the pretty bow she wrapped my adoption up in. Until I was 18 and got my post-adoptive registry records and found out that I was starving to death, being neglected, way underweight, and neglect, and it was 6 months old, right? So she told me I was surrendered at birth, takes far more love. My mother loved me. And I don't deny that my mother loved me. Serenity's mom loves her. She just can't raise her. She just can't raise anybody, right? Like, she's just not well herself, right? And it's not a shame thing. It's just a fact. And so we've had many conversations. And I think that in order for people to feel home, feel okay in their own skin, you don't want to make their life ALI. B, you don't want to make it some big dirty subject, like, oh God. Like I never wanted people to say, well, how many kids do Murray and Sally have? Well, they have 2 of their own, and then they adopted that little Indian girl. Yeah. I don't like I've heard people say that. I've heard that people say, how many kids did Jean and Alan Dick have? Well, they have 2. They adopted 2 kids. They kind of whisper it almost like it's some dirty little secret. I'm freaking adopted. What's the big hang? And that used to make me nuts. Like, why are we making this? I was at a family reunion when I was 18, and they had the big family tree up on this wall, and this guy had spent hours, and this woman who was doing it with him had put big red letter A's besides my brother's and my name for adopted. And okay, this is a story that I'm proud of, not proud of, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. It's the juice. So I went up to this woman and I said, what in the heck? This one was a teacher. That was what's scary to me. Molding the minds. And elementary teacher. And I said, why do you have A's beside our names? And I knew why. And she goes, well, to say you're adopted. And I said, why in red? What are we, scarlet? And she goes, well, you're adopted, aren't you? I said, okay, fine. And I'm a bit spicy. Let's be honest, Connie. And I said to her, cool. I said, well, then I want to be beside every bastard child born into this family, starting with your grandson. She never liked me. That's a true story.
Oh my goodness, Sally, you know what? You've just been saucy since, I think you were saucy when you came out of,
yeah.
right from the get-go, oh my goodness. But, I find that so interesting how, like you said, the whisper, the shame around adopting, and yet on Instagram, beautiful. This is the most glorious thing ever. How is this paradox even possible? Where on one hand, it's so dirty and you're not good enough and you weren't wanted, to now, this is the most amazing experience ever. And I love how you talk so real about that mess,
Yeah.
that actually can be, and the beauty that it is at the same time.
And it's both. But isn't most things? But for adoption, it's 1 or 2. And there's 2 camps in the adoption world. There's the people that think it's the adult adoptees that think it's the worst thing in the world. And then there's the people who adopt, or society's idea of adopt, that it's all rainbows and unicorns. And it's neither. get out of those camps because they bear no fruit. You know, we always feel like we had to be grateful. We have to feel grateful that someone took us on.
Mm.
Do you know how lucky you are? I must have heard that a million times. If I had a dime for every time like that, I'd be a millionaire right now. I heard that in my life. I would be a millionaire. Do you know how lucky you are that you have such great parents? No one says that. And no one says that to a biological child. Has anybody ever said that to you about your two sons? Ever? No. Or to them. Do you know how lucky you are? No. No one says that. But
I wish they would, just saying. But
yeah, I know, Mike. Me too. I got a couple bios too.
well, I really, really love that you're just honest and real. I want to open up the opportunity for anyone to ask a question in a minute. So just be thinking, like, you have a question for Sally. I mean, as you can see, there's really nothing that's off limits here.
Oh.
So if you on Facebook, I will check there. I will check in the chat here. But if anyone has a question, please, like, this is our opportunity to ask the author. Ask the author of this amazing book, In Search of Serenity. And I remember reading it for the first time, and I had a couple jaw drops throughout, because you've adopted an Indigenous girl, and
Yeah.
again, what the Indigenous have gone through, continue to go through, and even what you've experienced being someone white who has adopted, and just that interesting mix of having an Indigenous daughter, and what the Indigenous think of that. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe you could tell us a little bit about that while people are thinking.
I'm always about this whole let's come together. Let's come together. And I'll never forget, I had an Indigenous, I don't know what she was, a liaison or something with social services, and I got talking to her one day, and she goes, "Oh, so what you're saying is you're raising an apple." And I'm like, "What the hell's an apple?" And I didn't know what that meant. And I went, "Oh, okay." And I phoned a girlfriend of mine who has two kids from Haiti, and I said, "Terry, what's an apple?" And she says, "Red on the outside, white on the inside." That's an insult, Sally. And I was shocked by that. I was shocked. And I was, let's come together. Is this really what this is about? Is this really like now we're going to hate each other? We went to Serenity's band they wanted to bless our adoptions, and we went with her biological cousin and her adoptive family, and we were excited, and we did the right things. We dressed right, because there's a whole protocol to go on reserve, and I'm cool with that. I actually love that so much. And I thought this is going to be this beautiful, we're going to be family. We're going to just all come together and just love on these children, right? And we were pariahs. The other mother of Serenity's cousin said to me, anybody childbearing age and younger hated our guts. They just saw us as a threat. And the chief, who was a female, spoke up, and she was beautiful. She was a beautiful human. The chief and council for her band were amazing. And she said, she made a speech, and she said, "We have some special guests here tonight." And she said, I've been watching you all, and I see how you're treating them, and I see what you're thinking." And she said, "We have two choices. We have two choices here. We can, you think the white men are taking all of our children. The reality is, lots of them are. And we have two choices. We can hate them and make them our enemy, and we'll never see our children, and we'll never be able to teach them their culture. Or we can welcome them, embrace them as family, and we can come together, and we'll always be able to teach our children and know where they are and show them their culture." I know what I'm choosing. But that's not normal. That's not a typical response. We got some pretty nasty comments that night, and there was moments when we were nervous, right? We were seen as a threat, and I just wish we could come to the table. Let's just come to the table and talk. I was very adamant to meet Serenity's birth mother, and I really pushed the social worker hard. I want to meet her birth mother, and she'd sort of given us this in this boardroom half an hour. 3 hours later, we were still there. I was hugging her. I was holding her. And I always break protocol. I always threw this shit up, because I'm just like, okay, we're all looking at the elephant in the middle of the room and no one's talking about it. Let's friggin' bring it up. So she was really nervous. She was stressed, and she was trying to dance around the subject. She was also having some tweaking issues, And I said, okay, I didn't know if I was going to be saying the wrong thing. I didn't know if the social worker was going to hang me later. I actually didn't care. Part of my problem. And I said, all right, let's cut the crap here. I need you to know something. Because she was asking me questions like, would you ever adopt? How old are you? Do you read to her? Like, what do you think about Indigenous kids? You know, like, what do you know? She was asking me all these leading questions. And I said, I just want to cut the crap here. I said, first, number one, you are in a no judgment zone right here, right now. This is a no judgment zone, and this is a no shame zone. I need you to know something. I couldn't love this little girl more. I couldn't love her more if someone had pulled her out of my body and put her on my chest. I would die for this child. We are desperate to adopt her, but we want to embrace you too. We want to love you too.
Whoa,
Sorry.
that was so powerful. Sorry, I'm sorry for my reaction.
Oh, that's okay.
But we want to embrace you too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Sally, what a statement of reconciliation right there.
Why can't, and I had some pretty, when I said I was going to meet her, I had some people say some pretty nasty things to me about her mother. And I said, here's the thing. That woman that and I won't tell you what they called her, is the woman who made my dreams come true. That is half of who my child is. How can I malign and say bad things and think bad things of who she is and where she came from? I am not going to, like, I love this child. I must love her. And I am not threatened by her. I'm not threatened by her birth mother. I'm not. I had said to her, if you could get clean, you could see her. Unfortunately, that's a many-headed monster, but through no fault of her own. And I looked at her and I how could you hate someone for having an addiction issue, for being flawed? Like why do we have so much bloody hate and judgment? And she, before I knew it, like Murray was carrying Serenity, and I'm hugging her and she's crying, and she felt so loved. And she did something the social worker had never seen. She knew she couldn't keep Serenity, and she asked for a lawyer, and she wanted a signed paper to say that she will surrender her and sign the release forms for her on one condition that's written in a contract, that only Murray and Sally can adopt her. Wow. The social worker said she's never seen that. In 15 years of being a worker, I've never seen this. Because she loved us. And when she had another child 5 years later, she only wanted us to take him. Unfortunately, I was in a place where I couldn't do it. Physically, I'd been diagnosed and I was quite ill at the time, and I couldn't do it. And I had said to the social worker, we would consider that only on one condition. It's a flat out adoption. There's no visits. There's no fostering. There's no PGO, TG. It's TGO, PGO. None of that crap. It's straight up adoption. And she goes, well, that's not possible. I said, well, then I can't. I emotionally and mentally can't do it again. I can't love another child and live, because I lived in terror for 4 years. I went to bed every night and I prayed to God, please God, don't take her from me tomorrow. I couldn't go on.
And that has been a real struggle with, and again, like, Sally, I know your heart, and you're not afraid to say things like it is. And you've talked to me very, very blunt about the social services system in general, and how it is not the best. There's good people in it. You haven't met some good people in it. You didn't have some good experiences. And so this idea that it's not as easy as people think, and the struggles that you've had with that. I'm wondering if you could just speak to that for a moment. I know Steph had asked in the chat about, why is this not the best system right now? And what needs to happen?
Well, I have a pretty harsh feelings about it, because it really was the worst experience of my life. And as you guys have heard tonight, I've had some stuff. It's not about the kids. It's not about the kids. And I had a social worker say to me, it's never about the kids. And I said, when do they matter? I literally had a worker say to me, it's never about the kids. And so what they do is they For me, I just met power trippers and God players, and they didn't care about the little heart, this terrified little heart. So we're going to go for a visit on a Tuesday morning. And every night at Tuesday night after I put her to bed, I always rocked her to sleep and held her and rocked her to sleep until she was out, put her in her crib. And every Tuesday night at 10:30, you could set your watch to it. She would wake up screaming for me. And I would go in and I'd hold her for another hour, and then she'd fall back to sleep, and then she would sleep for the rest of the night. And that happened every week for 4 years. And what happens is if you put these kids, it's all about the rules. It's all about what they think they know best. It's all about what they're playing God in children's lives, and they need to check their egos. In my opinion, the whole system needs to be defunded and taken away. The whole system needs to be shut down. Everybody needs to be fired, and we need to start over from the bottom. It has to start in university, because they're teaching social workers that it's power. I spoke to a man named Kerry Sauvé, who you know yesterday, actually, or Sunday. What an amazing man! And we were talking about the system, and he works in the jails as a corrections officer, and he says it's got to be, it needs to be shut down. I personally believe, and I said this comment to you when I first met you, and you almost spit your coffee at me, and I'll say it again, and I will go to my grave saying this, and I will own this. And if anybody has a problem with it, I don't care. You haven't lived my life. Read my book. Social foster care is modern day residential schools. Mic drop. It is. It's not okay.
When you said that to me, I was like, whoa, this.
I thought I'd never hear from you again.
Yeah, no, well, and it really shocked me, because again, it comes back to that dehumanizing. We get more into the system. We want to check the rules. Jody's saying, like, if it's not about the kids, what's it about? Well, it's about the rules. It's about checking off my check marks. And it has to come back to the human. Like, that's what I like about your message, Sally. You remind people that if it's not about the kids, it's not about the human being, then why are we doing it?
And why are we doing this? And that's what I want to know. And social services does more damage. I always say, what are you trying to do? Just have job security? And they say to me, they have all these things that they think are the only way. And, they're all about bio families, and it's all bio. And I'm here to tell you that biology is not always best. And it doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean they're evil. It doesn't mean any of that. What it means is that, quite frankly, I have 2 biological sons. And if they were drug addicts, they wouldn't be in Serenity's lives. End up, whether I gave birth to them or not. Biology is not always best. It's who's going to lean in with love? Who's going to do the most work? Who's going to be the one that's up at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're puking their guts out from some, who's the one there? I spending all night at the hospital when they're having seizures. That was me. So no, we put so much importance on biology, when we just forget that biology is just blood. Belonging is spirit.
Ooh,
and for our kids to belong, they need to know it in here. It doesn't matter that I'm white and she's brown. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I don't give a crap what color your skin is. And when you can look at these beautiful little children and put them in disgusting baby meal foster homes where they're doing it for money, and go home at the end of the day and think that's okay, that's a problem for me. That's a problem for me. And we have to stop paying people, letting people use this as a job. It's not a job. Fostering is an act of love. It's not a job. It's not a job. Take your money.
Fostering is not a job. Wow. Another mic drop. That's just, I really love, you bring us back to, well, if I could even say it, the heart of God, the heart of adoption, from, what this is really supposed to look like. And I agree with you, Sally. I was adopted by my father when I was 4. My stepdad, I never called him my stepdad. Oh. He was my dad because he created home for me growing up. And honestly, I would never want to be connected to my biological dad because he threatened my mother's life. That is not what I want. So I agree with you.
And you have to come to that place where you biologically were a part of him, right? But it's it's that old nature versus nurture thing, right? But belonging is spirit, and Serenity will be, she will be amazing. I one time we all sunburned terribly in our family. All, the boys, Murray, all of us, right? And but Murray's a little bit darker. He tans a little bit better. And Brady, I picked Brady up from some summer camp and he was sunburned. He goes, oh, I said, I'm sorry, buddy. I gave you that lily white skin. I'm sorry. And Randy's sitting in the back seat and she goes, yeah, I know, babes. I got daddy's skin. That's why I don't have that owie red. And she got daddy's skin. She thinks that because Murray tans a little better, but she's got daddy's skin. She no clue because it shouldn't matter. Biology shouldn't matter. Like she just thought she had her dad's skin.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
No, yeah, no, that's so good. Yes, this is phenomenal. And I think, those of you who are watching, you're hearing Sally's heart. You're hearing, what she's really about. And this book, I have to just tell everyone about this book because, we're almost at 7:30. And honestly, Sally, if I don't tell people to go and get this book, I don't feel like I'm doing justice here, because the reason why I wanted to host tonight, Sally did not ask me to do this.
No.
I imposed upon her for once. I said, we are going to do this, Sally, because I just felt that, when you release a book, can I just be really honest? When you release a book as an author, and especially during a pandemic, you have these beautiful dreams. You're putting your heart, as you can see, Sally has put her heart into this book, and I've read it, and it's phenomenal, and it challenges the right things, and it is rebellious, and it does call us to what love really looks like. And I really do want everyone, like I'm serious, all of you on the Zoom, everyone watching later, those of you on the Facebook, if you haven't ordered this book, I don't know about you, but this Christmas, for me, I'm really reevaluating stuff. I don't need more
Absolutely.
stuff, but I really want to support, authors, local business. I want something meaningful. And this book is powerful. And I said to Sally, because they've had a rough go, like Murray has had surgery, her husband, 2 surgeries. And, this is just not the year to have surgeries and not be able to work. And I said to Sally, if we could sell 25 books, 25 books for an evening, that would give you some money for Christmas. And Sally has not asked me to say this. She's going to probably kill
Oh.
me. She's going to kill me later. But you know what? Like, I just feel like, imagine, each one of us bought this book for a friend. If I have it already, buy another one and spread something beautiful. Spread this amazing message. Bonnie is ordering right now. That's what I'm talking about. You know what? I love that, Bonnie. It is a beautiful book. And like I said, it's not about, coming on here and saying, please buy this book, but buying one for a friend, because I just think this year is the year to pass on meaning, to pass on what's really important. What are people looking for? What is every single person on your street looking for this Christmas? Belonging. What is every person in your workplace
Yeah.
looking for this Christmas? Belonging.
Yeah.
Belonging is something that a lot of people don't have, especially right now in lockdown. And so what a great way. You know what? Amazon, I love it. You just go on Amazon and you type in their address. You don't even have to deliver it to their house. And so what an amazing thing to do. And honestly, I forgot to put this on the Facebook. I'm going to put this on the Facebook right now, everybody, because this is such a good book. Yeah. So here it is. I don't know, Bonnie's ordered it.
The whole thing about what you said about this year is, this is the year to lean in with love. This is the year to just, people don't need stuff. They don't need stuff. You just gotta declutter it in January, and then Marie Kondo gets richer. We just need to lean in with love. And the whole premise of my book was that in search of serenity, the opening line of the book is, serenity, something I've been looking for my whole life. Who knew it would come to me wrapped up in a little girl with big brown eyes who had no life? Serenity saved me. That's the story. She saved me. So when people say to me, "Oh, she's so lucky," no, she saved me.
That's
I spoke
beautiful.
at another event that Connie had just a week ago, and I talked about suicide. And I've had some suicide stuff. And, you know, it's all, again, it comes back to belonging. It comes back to feeling like you fit somewhere, that you're lovable. And that's what I want this, that's what I want this book to do, is to let everybody know they're lovable. And that, you know what, even in the messy middle, even if it's messy, you know, what are you reading, Connie?
I'm reading the chat. I'm making sure I don't miss any comments. Yeah, I love that. I love that. We need more love this Christmas. That's what we need. You
And
know,
that's what people need. We need people. We need connection. I'm known as a connection coach, apparently, and that was you that called me that. And but I'm all about connection, because you know what, you can be bonded, but you're not connected, and we need real connection.
yes, that's what we need. And when we have this, what you're saying here, Sally, when we have connection, when we have love, Christmas is not canceled.
That's right.
There's no
Christmas is
lockdown
not
that can
canceled.
shut that down.
Yeah, Christmas is not canceled, because Jason Kenney doesn't have the right to take Christmas. He can't take my heart. He can't take the love away that I have. Like, we can, you know what? Christmas is not canceled. It's just not.
It's not.
It's not canceled. It's as a matter of fact, I think it's bigger than ever.
It's
I think it's
bigger than
bigger
ever.
than ever.
Yes.
Like, not today, Satan. This is happening.
I love that. That's right. Anyone agree with that? Anyone agreeing? Like, yeah, this is what we're talking about. Amen. Somebody gave us an amen in the chat. That's so good. Well, I want to thank you so much, Sally, for
Thank
being
you.
here tonight, taking your hour to come on and share your heart with us. I want to thank everyone who is watching and will watch. And um, I love your words. Like, let's get back to creating home and belonging here so that we can pass it on to a hurting world
Mm-hmm.
and to people around us who need it so badly. And again, please buy this book. This book is phenomenal. And again, you know, with all this downtime, what are you going to do?
Read, people.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much. And if you're just tuning into the Facebook, please rewind. This is going to it'll be on my wall. And please continue to watch it. Share the video. And again, thank you everyone for coming. And thank
Thank you,
you,
everybody,
Sally.
for listening. I appreciate everyone here, and have a Merry Christmas, because Christmas is not canceled.
Christmas is not canceled.
Not today, Satan.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.